Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Go Marketing Show. Today we are going to continue our conversation about AI, except we're going to take a different pivot and we're going to talk about how to use AI beyond content creation. And as a leadership team, where can you figure out how to apply it and use it beyond just content? And we have been doing this a lot lately, so I'm pumped to dive in. John, great to see you again. It's been a while.
Yeah, it has been a little bit. It's good to have you back.
It's been a lot of travel and a lot of AI conversations with clients the last month and a half. So definitely think the things you and Ben and Nithi are doing are adding a tremendous amount of value. Because it's funny, every meeting I was in the last month, like, oh, I've seen your show. I see what you guys are talking about. So you guys are crushing it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's cool having these conversations. So I'm glad that you've been having them outside of this show too, so that we'll have a lot to talk about today.
If we got to pay to produce it somehow, so it's working. Fire away. I know you got some fun questions, and I'll probably go on a couple riffs while you ask them, but fire away.
Perfect. Yeah, like you said at the start there, Ben and I noticed last week when we were talking about kind of how our processes are affected by AI, that a lot of what we talk about on the show, Ben and myself, is relating to content creation. And so we just wanted to have your input and what you've experienced in terms of how AI can affect bigger decisions and how decision makers in companies should be leaning more on AI for their businesses.
Sure. So it's funny. Last week I was speaking at the Ontario PGA on implications of AI, where they can use it, and this similar question came up of like, how do we use it beyond content marketing? And part of that I think goes back to some of the origins of AI, and it's only now that AI has kind of hit the point where it has mass adoption. Everyone's playing with it. ChatGPT made it really accessible, but it's been around for a while. I mean, as a team, we've been using it for almost 3 years now. But if you look at the underlying components of AI, a lot of it had to do with, number one, processing information. So if you think about IBM Watson back in 2009 on Jeopardy, they've been using it in the medical fields, they've been using it in finance, and insurance has been using it to process data for actuaries. One of the things you're seeing now is enterprise software is starting to integrate it to help with process workflow. So anything where you're making simplified decisions, where, for example, you have data and the outcome is A or B, it's pretty clear. It doesn't take a lot of interpretation, or it is a workflow process. So over the last couple months, Salesforce, which is one of the larger CRM softwares, they introduced AI into their process. HubSpot has some workflows in there. So I think at a start, if instead of using the word AI broadly, you try to understand how can I use some workflows that use decision making as a step in my business. And there's a lot of functions if you think in order processing. So adding things in e-commerce is a good one. Sales automation. So the automation of booking appointments or accessing a calendar or making it easy to reschedule. Those are bigs. Automating note taking. Even Zoom recently, Zoom has integrated some note taking and note summary into the application itself. So the ability to do note taking is now gone. So I think anything where there was a manual task and you can implement a workflow is a big place to create efficiencies within a business that you can leverage AI for. But just be careful when you say AI, it's more workflow automation, which is kind of the third thing we do when we set them up for client. First is prompt engineering, second is command stacking, and the third, and this is more the business application piece, is your workflow automations. So just determining which ones are best, I think, is where most businesses need to look beyond, is where can I drive efficiency and how do tools and AI platforms start to augment that?
Yeah, that makes sense. So in terms of, we talk a lot about the customer journey, which is obviously a big, like the biggest picture, I guess, and how we try and get people through different funnels. Are there ways people can be using AI to help them determine that customer journey, or help them to build that out, or help them to implement these workflows to get people to start moving through their funnels and get people going through these journeys?
Yes and no. If you have a repetitive task, there is AI tools, and we'll have to look at them and put them in the show notes. Or if you just ask in the comments, we'll send them to you, that can help document SOPs or standard operating procedures. So if you have a repetitive task like how to set up a Facebook ad, or how to set up a Google ad, or how to use a particular software, that's really good where you can just do it with screen recording, grab the transcript, and they'll produce documentation for an SOP or standard operating procedure. When it comes to developing workflows and process where AI is more beneficial, in my opinion, that is not something that should be automated. That's actually the first step in our process, is documenting the very specific workflows and helping find opportunities. Where can we automate things? Now, we typically do it reverse, and we have some other videos which we can link to in the comments section, wherever you're watching this, on the customer loyalty framework, where we look at everything closest to the transaction first. So after somebody buys, how are we onboarding? How are we making sure they feel welcomed? And how are we asking for referrals? And then we diagnose before that, what is that onboarding? Like, how do we actually close people? What's missing? And you can do this same type of exercise in a sales process. You can do it on a customer onboarding sequence. You can do it within your teams and any operating procedures you have. But you can't build a process without a blueprint. It's kind of like building a house. And the more accurate that blueprint is, the better you're able to execute against that strategy. For example, let's say, I have a blueprint on the house and it's just, very basic. And I go to use that blueprint to build a house, but the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC's not on those drawings. Well, I might have odd spaces, or I might not be able to run a vent to the second floor. So anybody who's looking to use any type of workflow automation or AI in their business, you need to have them documented. And I highly recommend you do it visually, so you can see, oh, I understand like how these handoffs happen. The second reason that's important is you might have other platforms that are better fits. ChatGPT, while it's powerful, it's awesome, it's not always the best answer for what someone's trying to solve. So it's really important to, step one is document the process, and then two, pick the right tools for what you're trying to accomplish. Then you can figure out, okay, I might be using ChatGPT for my creative. I might just be using some of Google's products, internally for some of their own automations between analytics and ads. You might be able to use their platforms, or pick an entirely different third party. But documenting that journey or the process map is fundamental to having any success with the platform.
That sounds like a nice little plug for our AI toolkit. If you're looking for the which tool you should be using for which job, we should I'll link to that in the description so that people can check out our toolkit there. But I like what you're saying. It sounds like it's what you're saying is in parallel with ideas we've had before, or just general use of AI. Is like, regardless what you're using it for, you still have to set the context. You still have to know what you're trying to achieve. You still have to be able to have that blueprint, regardless of what you're trying to do, because the AI is only as good as what you put into it, and what your base foundation is going into what you're trying to get out of it. So that definitely goes in. It's very congruent with what we've been saying before.
It's 100%. It's
Yeah.
garbage in, garbage out. And let's take it on the sales side instead of marketing. If I don't have a defined sales process, this is where most leads are lost. Okay. The number one reason that sales don't close is because of inaction. And part of that inaction is someone just doesn't make a decision, or they're not ready to buy. But the second is just poor follow-up. They don't have a documented process of like, when do we need to follow up? What does the timing need to look like? What are the things that we do? Are we sending an automated email sequence? Do we want them to book a call? Do we need to assign tasks for follow-up? And I know, like, being in sales, like having this laundry list things to do, it sucks, but Having tools in place to make sure that we're executing against a strategy is how you win. It is how you close more sales year after year. And if you can remove some of those barriers, and it's funny, we were talking to a manufacturing client about this a couple weeks ago. They had 180 leads from a sales thing. They sent one email, and they don't know if their sales team followed up. Now, if we were able to automate some of that and have strategic follow-up sequences, have tasks for salespeople, say, hey, the expectation is you have this many follow-ups. It takes between 9 to 18 touch points to close a sale. Most people do 2. So this is where integrating the right tool set and AI, if, for example, you want a chat bot that can help nurture the conversation and get a call booked, that's a really good first application of AI in the sales process. And one not a lot of people are doing well, but it's everything from small business now all the way up to major enterprise. It's accessible.
Yeah. And that seems like it seems like a lot of work to set up a workflow like that and set up that automation, but like we've done it on Go High Level and stuff. Like once you do get that set up, it makes going forward so much easier, and it amplifies basically everything that you do because you have this workflow going on behind you, and so you don't have to be meticulously paying attention to every little thing because you know that it's happening. You can focus more on the things that you do best. So that's pretty cool. Do you have any other just general tips, best practices, any specific softwares that you would send people to, anything like that to kind of wrap us up here?
One is not necessarily an AI, but one of my favorite tools if you're trying to document a funnel is a tool called Funnelytics. We use it all the time just to visualize, here's the different paths that customers take. But honestly, pen, paper, or a whiteboard and a marker, just sit down and document your customer journey to start. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the more you start to look at the conversion points, that pattern of thought is impactful because you start to realize, hey, there's one more thing I can do. And I'll be honest, one of my favorite books I probably read in the last 5 years is something called Atomic Habits. And in the book, he explains that if you're just 1% better every day, it's a 37x increase over a year. And if you look at your customer journey and just figure out, hey, here's 1 or 2 critical areas that we need to focus on, that exercise alone is going to help you figure out, hey, you know what? Yeah, we can help automate that. We can use AI in that component. Or, hey, there's a huge gap. Like this is the point in our funnel where we have a lot of people fall off. That's where we need to fix it. So if you're going to do anything, just visualize your customer journey funnel or your customer journey or your sales process and just find 1 or 2 things that you can fix. Then go pick AI. Starting with AI first and then trying to figure this out is just a nightmare. It's going to frustrate you. It's not going to work as well as it could, but just start slow to go fast.
I think that's a great piece of advice. I think that's a good way to finish our talk here. But I feel like we could talk about this a lot more than we have now, and it's definitely something that we should carry on maybe next week or something.
We will. We'll dive into some specific things. We can show some examples of workflows we built for commercial sales teams, because I think that's the missing piece. A lot of people can get in and experiment with ChatGPT and do some cool stuff, but the real meat of where success and where revenue is driven from is helping to close sales. And I think that's the piece where we'll start diving a little deeper going forward. But until next week, please share, comment, ask questions. We are here to help you. It has been fun. I'm glad to have been able to jump on next week. Hopefully we can do it live. I travel again the next 3 weeks, so we'll have to fit it in on odd days. But until then, you guys enjoy my awesome team and let them keep bringing the fire.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.